Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. I'm going to try and not be emotional. I'm just going to try and stick to the facts in this because I'm so angry. Okay, this is going to be another Gaza update. I'm going to keep doing Gaza updates on this channel for as long as I can. I can't go to protest because I'm disabled, although I believe there are some local protests coming up, which I will go to if I'm able to do those. But this is the best way I can use my platform, I think. If there's anything else I can do that I'm not doing, please let me know in the comments and I will try to do whatever I can. As always, links to medical aid for Palestinians are in the description box. You can donate and they'll get aid if they're allowed to get aid. There's an Oxfam Gaza appeal. Keep talking about it. Like, do not let this become something that goes on in the background and gets forgotten about, right? And just normal content resumes. Like, just make sure that people understand that there is an ethnic cleansing happening. This is a massacre of people, and in the future we will be judged, right? In the future we will, whether that's in our lifetimes or beyond that, right? But people are going to look back on this time and they're going to look back at what we all did and how we responded to this and how we went about our lives in this period. Okay, I was going to make a video about how angry I am with Keir Starmer, but literally that's not as important as what's going on right now. Let me just say that he won't back a ceasefire. He will not, even our leader of the opposition will not back a ceasefire because he thinks it's appropriate that if they back a ceasefire, then Israel won't be able to keep bombing Hamas. And yet Labour MPs won't resign. They won't resign at this point, but that's for another video. Okay, so the latest update is yesterday, the IDF bombed a refugee camp in Jabalia. I think if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologise. So Jabalia is a refugee camp. And let me just say that the IDF have they've claimed this themselves, right? So before something like this happens, when they strike a refugee camp or a school or a hospital or a mosque or a church, any of those protected places, we've had in the past few weeks, Israel saying like they won't claim it. And then the media here is like, oh, you know, what can we do? Because we don't really know, like maybe it was a Hamas rocket, maybe it was an Israeli rocket, even though Israel kind of rung that building and told everyone to get out and say they're going to bomb it. But Israel have now reached a point where they're so confident because they've got the support of Western powers like us and the US and other places in Europe, that they are now openly claiming the fact that they bombed this refugee camp. Openly, right? They're proud of that. And they say it's justified because they say that they killed a high-up Hamas operative who they say was there in that refugee camp. Now, as of yesterday, and this was just as I was watching this unfold yesterday, so initially, more than 50 people, this might not even be accurate right now. I'll put it on the screen. There's going to be more. There's going to be more by the time you get this. Okay. More than 50 people they know were killed, right? 150 they believe were wounded. But the hospital, remember that the hospitals in Gaza are, like, it's chaos there because they don't have fuel. They don't have everything they need to operate. Like, it's panic. There are still people under the rubble. Like, everything is being destroyed. So, you know, they are estimating that's the amount. But there's probably going to be a lot more because the hospital cannot properly verify or count the amount of people. And I'm sorry to get graphic, but if you see what's happened, it's a massive crater. It is a massive, massive crater full of body parts, right? And, okay, I'm not going to go upset because that's not helpful for anybody. Okay, but just bear in mind, there's probably more people wounded. Now, Israel says, yeah, we bombed that, and we bombed it because there was a senior Hamas commander in there, and they say that he was under it in the tunnel system. So images from the actual scene that we have, massive craters, injured and dead children, okay? I'm trying not to get upset in the video. And videos of people crying for their children and crying out to God, like crying out to Allah, like, that's what's happening there. And Israel is now so confident that it is now saying, yes, we did it, but it's because Hamas was there. Like, our media has gone along with this stupid, what they're going to do, right? It's just a war crime. And Israel doesn't care about committing war crimes because it does it with impunity all the time. But remember when they bombed the hospital before, right? And there was that, oh, maybe it was a Hamas rocket, maybe it wasn't. Like, let's not be too hasty and say it was Israel, even though Israel rang the place beforehand to say they were going to do it. And then claimed that, oh, but there might have been Hamas in there anyway. Now they're openly doing it. Are people even waking up at this point? Like, before, they were hiding it, right? They knew that people might condemn them, but they were pushing it. They were pushing it like a toddler pushing things. You know, like, oh, if I can be a bit naughty, let me see how this goes for me. And then I'm just going to openly do it. You know, do they think it's cute if I steal this stuff from the store? Or do they get angry with me? Maybe I should stop. So now they are just openly saying, they are now saying anything they want to target whatsoever, all they have to say is, we believe that Hamas is there. Therefore, it's a legitimate target. That's all they have to say. And they get no pushback. right? They get no pushback. It doesn't matter if the majority of people that die there, the evidence with our own eyes and ears is that the majority of people are civilians in that area, right? And also, how are you even going to identify? Like, someone made this tweet the other day about this war, you know, this war between Israel and Palestine, and someone said, I've never seen the Palestinian army. What's their uniform? What's their uniform? Like, literally everything we're seeing is people in just like civilian clothes with trainers on, like battered trainers and things, because they've been... Okay. But yeah, so they're openly now saying, like, their whole thing is, well, Hamas have tunnels, and therefore we have to bomb everything there because they might be there. And I want to say a few things about this. So I don't know how to order this. I've got 3 things to say in this video. The dehumanization of Palestinians is so extreme because essentially what they've said. So they've confirmed that they believe they have killed a high-up Hamas commander. They are basically justifying that, right? It doesn't matter that all those civilians there were killed because they are saying, well, it's a war and we've got our commander. Switch that around in your head. Switch that around in your head. So imagine when Hamas came over to Israel, right? Imagine that they were actually after a senior IDF official, right? And I would say, you know, the senior IDF officials are just as... They are not good people, right? They are occupying, they're breaking international law. Now, if somebody from Hamas had done that, right, and they had demolished like a full, like a massive crater and demolished, and many children were like dead and dying, and they said, well, we got our guy, right, we got our guy. How would the world respond to that? How would the world respond to that? It's insane. Like, it's basically, the world has just accepted that it's hundreds of Palestinian lives mean nothing if you get one Hamas person, right? And also, I'm not saying this guy wasn't killed or anything. I don't know the details of that, but what, like, they can just say now at any point, well, we thought Hamas was there. Oh, you killed a load of civilians, and now it turns out that there was no Hamas. Oh, well, we thought Hamas was there, and you know, they're sneaky because they're in the tunnels and stuff, so how could we possibly know? This is an advanced military, right? They're not playing hide and seek. They're not guessing. They've got so... Right, okay. So what the IDF actually said, a spokesperson for the IDF went on ABC, right? This was about 10 hours ago. I'm just going to read you what was said about this situation. So the spokesperson was Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Am I getting that right? Let me just make sure I've got that right. Jonathan Conricus. Yeah, that's right. Okay, now he says to this ABC anchor that as part of the friction that the region has been experiencing, they are pleased that they're pleased to announce they've taken out a high-up Hamas person. And he's able to say, at one point, I think he says they've taken out several terrorists, right? And they've identified several, they've managed to take them out. They know that they've got them out. They know that, right? So bear in mind, their technology, they're saying their intelligence allows them to know exactly who's there, exactly who's under the ground even, right? They're able to figure out who's there, how many bodies are there, all that kind of stuff, like who's there in that building. So then he's asked by the ABC interviewer, how many civilians though? How many civilians died? And you know what he says? He says, we can't really calculate that at this time. We don't know. Sorry, you can calculate how many Hamas is there apparently, and how many you can find out about underground tunnel systems, and you can apparently hack in to listen to Hamas like talking about a rocket, which then turns out that most places actually believe was an Israeli rocket, and yet you can't calculate the amount of civilians killed. Is everyone okay? Angry and upset. I am angry and upset, but I don't want it to like overshadow what's going on. Like, it's, you know. Now, this is his quote. This is how he spoke about it. This is from Jonathan Conricus. We have asked the civilians to evacuate. We have given them ample time. We have said it in Arabic. We have told them where to evacuate to. Anybody who stays in the northern part of Gaza is actively endangering himself, and he should vacate. And I'd like to stress, these weren't people who could not move. This wasn't people in a hospital or elderly people or people who could not move. It's people who either they made a decision or a decision was made for them by Hamas to keep them there. The interviewer then asks, but you're asking them to move to the south and you're bombing the south. The reason that people have fled to the south, and the ones that could go to the south have gone to the south and are having to come back, is because there is a catastrophe, a man-made humanitarian catastrophe, where there isn't enough fuel, there's sickness breaking out, right? People don't know where to go or where is safe. And he answers with this: there are safer places to be. It is a war zone. I understand that people are experiencing great discomfort and fear, and I understand that. And it's not something we are trying to achieve. We are fighting a military organisation which has established itself within the civilian population and are using the civilians as their human shields. They embed themselves under hospitals, schools, UN facilities, mosques. Anything that is supposed to be protected and holy is used by Hamas. The interviewer then asks him how many strikes, because that looks like more than one strike, because we see a crater and we see dead children. And he says, oh, we don't know. Can't verify right now. I mean, probably a lot, but we can't really verify that information. The interviewer says to him, but the whole thing has collapsed. All those civilians are dead. And he says, well, that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that things collapse. But the most important thing is that they build the tunnels knowing that they're jeopardizing civilians living above. Right, I'm going to go through this a little bit with you because our media won't do this. They're cowards, right? And like, I've got a very small channel, but let's do this, right? Let's go through this and how sick it is, right? We have asked the civilians to evacuate. First of all, they've got no right. They've got no right to tell those occupied people that under international law, they have responsibility to look after. You can't displace those people. Second of all, the place they're telling them to go to in the south, they're illegally telling them to go to, they've got no right to do that. They are also bombing. It is not safe in the south. People were killed trying to get to the south and people are being bombed in the south right now. He says, we have given the warning in Arabic, right? And let's talk about this because I keep hearing people saying, well, it's all right. It's so courteous of them because they give a warning, right? They say, oh, it's all right. Like, you know, they have the courtesy and the kindness to tell you that they're going to do it before they do it. And like, the dehumanization of Palestinians is so much. Like, I think I wrote this down because I was thinking about this morning. So think about it like this, right? Let's think about 9/11, right? I feel like we all know of 9/11, remember it, or have seen 9/11, or what happened on 9/11. Would it be different to you if there'd been a call beforehand, right, to say, look, we want to hit your financial centre because we don't like the way your system is running and the money that you're using, you know, we don't disagree with your use of that. We see this as a legitimate military target. You know, sure, we know that there are innocent people there, so we're just giving you the warning, by the way. We're going to collapse the towers because we think that, you know, this is a legitimate target. So we're going to collapse those. So just letting you guys know that you need to get out of there, and anyone who isn't out of there, you'll be complicit and you'll have to die. Now, tell me honestly, right, if that call came in, how do you think the people of New York would react, and how would you want them to react, right? If the people in the surrounding area were told, look, these things are going to collapse, you need to move, right? Because this is a war zone now. This is to us a military target. So if there are any civilians there, like, you know, I know it's sad for you guys, but off you go. Now, also add to that picture, imagine the panic of that situation happening, but also imagine it was all rubble. So New York was also rubble, so you couldn't really drive through it and get away. Imagine that your loved ones had already been killed in other situations, you couldn't get them out. There are hospitals in New York full of people who are trying to heal, who are too sick to move. Imagine that the places they tell you to go, the people that do go in their panic, are then bombed where they run to. So they don't know where's safe. And then suddenly all the power in the internet goes out and there's bombing everywhere. Just imagine that, please. I beg you to imagine that here in the West, because that is what the Palestinians are going through. And there is a disconnect. And Israel has done this for a long time. Like, they will call up a residential building. Sometimes they won't even do it, but they'll call up a residential building and say, we are about to bomb this thing, so you and your family need to get out. And people are actually going, good on them for giving the warning. How would you feel if somebody rang your house and said, you have 5 minutes because we are about to bomb your house, we just want to let you know, and then the phone went dead? So other parts of this, let's go through that. Anyone who stays in the northern part of Gaza is actively endangering himself. They have no right to ask these people to move. They have no right to ask these people to move. They are essentially saying, we're going to bomb it. We're now happy to tell you we're bombing it. And if you don't go, it's your own fault. And I'm even seeing people, someone on Twitter the other day actually had the audacity to come to me and say, well, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I wouldn't be there. If I got the call that my house was going to be bombed, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be that stupid. I have to pray for these people because I feel anger. I feel anger, and like my feelings are like angry and vengeful and like such frustration, but I have to just hold on to my religion and just be like, just pray that they find compassion, because It's so angering to me. Okay, he says, oh, they weren't people that couldn't move. You know, there were people in a hospital, or elderly people, or people who couldn't move. But he then says, so it was either a decision they made, which is essentially saying, well, you know, if they decided to stay there or they couldn't go, then they're essentially staying there with Hamas deliberately. And then he contradicts himself and says, oh, or maybe they were being held there by Hamas. Maybe they were being held there by Hamas. So if they believe that, which they don't believe, by the way, that is some rubbish. If they actually believe that's a situation where innocent children are being held there by Hamas, right, as in, we've got all these kids here, so don't bomb us, and somehow they think they're the good guys for going, well, you know, here's the thing, there's so many kids there, but, you know, the people we want are underneath the tunnel, so we're just gonna have to bomb them. We'll just have to kill those kids. Kids that, by this reasoning, would be being held there against their will. There's no humanity. When he's told again, you know, that some people can't move, he says again, oh, yeah, but there are safer places to be. There are safer places to be. And I'm sure, you know, I understand it's a lot of discomfort for them. Discomfort for them. Discomfort. Their children are dying agonizing deaths. They are being treated like animals to be slaughtered. And then he goes on again about how Hamas have embedded themselves in the civilian infrastructure, etc. And to that I would say, I don't know how much of that is true, but for what I would say is, in what world is this going to help? So say that's the case. Say they've embedded themselves under the civilian infrastructure, right? In fact, let's just spin that around, right? So we know Netanyahu's got a far-right government in Israel, right? And he's got a lot of public support in Israel because a lot of people there have been brainwashed. By that worldview, well, the people that are still there in Israel, it is occupying, right? They are settlers. And, you know, the thing is, they shouldn't be there anyway. You know, in all of Israel, and technically, you know, that's their leader, and it's part of their infrastructure, you know? Like, it's all part of their society. So, you know, it's sad if, like, hundreds of Israeli kids, if we kill hundreds of Israeli kids. But the thing is, it's in their infrastructure. Because you can't tell me that hatred isn't built into the infrastructure of the government of Israel. And, like, the actual, like... Right, again, right, think about how we think about this in the West. And this is how you see the dehumanization of Palestinians and people we see as different and people we see as Muslim and people we see as brown. If Putin had said, before he invaded Ukraine... he's ringing up Zelensky, and he's like, look, Zelensky, my bro, I'm going to invade. You've got about a week, all right? So I'm coming over, just wanted it to be, you know, just wanted us to be cool and chill, like, just giving you the heads up. I'm going to bomb it, and we're coming in, and, you know, you got to get out. Would you think we'd all be like, oh, well, that's reasonable. Zelensky, like, why don't you just move? Like, why don't you guys just go? Like, come on. Like, he's given you fair warning. He said he's going to come in and bomb the place and take over the place. Like, why don't you guys just go? Like, you know, it's not safe. It's clearly not safe to be there. Like, are you Ukrainian stupid? Like, this guy has given you the courtesy to say he's going to invade you and bomb you. And you're still there. Like, are you thick? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? It just... Okay. There's a poem that I'm going to read to you, which was on... I saw it on Twitter, and I just thought it was incredible. Okay, so this is a poem called Running Orders by Lena Kalaf Tafaha. I'll put the name on the screen. I'm probably mispronouncing it. Apologies, Lena. Or Lena. They call us now before they drop the bombs. The phone rings and someone who knows my first name calls and says in perfect Arabic, this is David. And in my stupor of sonic booms and glass-shattering symphonies still smashing around in my head, I think, do I know any Davids in Gaza? They call us now to say run. You have 58 seconds from the end of this message. Your house is next. They think of it as some kind of wartime courtesy. It doesn't matter that there is nowhere to run to. It means nothing that the borders are closed and your papers are worthless and mark you only for a life sentence in this prison by the sea. And the alleyways are narrow, and there are more human lives packed against one another more than any other place on earth. Just run. We aren't trying to kill you. It doesn't matter that you can't call us back to tell us the people we claim to want aren't in your house, that there's no one here except you and your children, who are cheering for Argentina, sharing the last loaf of bread for this week, counting candles left in case the power goes out. It doesn't matter that you have children. You live in the wrong place. And now is your chance to run to nowhere. It doesn't matter that 58 seconds isn't long enough to find your wedding album, or your son's favourite blanket, or your daughter's almost completed college application, or your shoes, or to gather everyone in the house. It doesn't matter what you had planned. It doesn't matter who you are. Prove you're human. Prove you stand on two legs. Run. I just think that's incredible. And I want to also remind people that this has been the situation in Gaza before October the 7th. They have been calling people up and taking out residential buildings. It's been happening for years. I think I've even spoken about it on my channel before. In the previous years, they've done this. And the world just thinks that's all right. That is an absolutely incredible poem, and it's devastating. And this is the sort of work, these are the poems that are going to come out of this time period when we look back. And it's going to be... This is unfolding right before our eyes. We have social media now. We have the ability to see it. We don't even have the excuses that previous generations had, where they could pretend they didn't know what was going on, or maybe genuinely didn't, I don't know. We don't have that now. We can see it. Anyway, okay, again, I'm sorry, I know I keep almost getting upset, but then I also think, like, what right have I got? Like, that's not what this is for. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to address here is I just wanted to read you a letter. So this letter is from the director of the United Nations New York office. He's just resigned after 30 years in the organisation. And this is how serious it is, and I'm just going to read this to you in its entirety. 28th of October 2023, this is dated. Dear High Commissioner, this will be my last official communication to you as Director of the New York Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. I write at a moment of great anguish for the world, including for many of our colleagues. Once again, we are seeing a genocide unfolding before our eyes, and the organisation that we serve appears powerless to stop it. As someone who has investigated human rights in Palestine since the 1980s, lived in Gaza as a UN human rights advisor in the 1990s, and carried out several human rights missions to the country before and since, this is deeply personal to me. I also worked in these halls through the genocides of the Tutsis, Bosnian Muslims, the Yazidi, and the Rohingya. In each case, when the dust settled on the horrors that had been perpetrated against defenceless civilian populations, it became painfully clear that we had failed in our duty to meet the imperative of prevention of mass atrocities, of protection of the vulnerable, and of accountability for perpetrators. And so it has been with successive wars of murder and persecution against the Palestinians throughout the entire life of the UN. High Commissioner, we are failing again. As a human rights lawyer with more than 3 decades of experience in the field, I know well that the concept of genocide has often been subject to political abuse. But the current wholesale slaughter of the Palestinian people, rooted in an ethno-nationalist settler colonial ideology, in continuation of decades of their systematic persecution and purging, based entirely on their status as Arabs, and coupled with explicit statements of intent by leaders in the Israeli government and military, leaves no room for doubt or debate. In Gaza, civilian homes, schools, churches, mosques, and medical institutions are wantonly attacked, as thousands of civilians are massacred. In the West Bank, including occupied Jerusalem, homes are seized and reassigned based entirely on race, and violent settler pogroms are accompanied by Israeli military units across the land. Apartheid rules. This is a textbook case of genocide. The European ethno-nationalist settler colonial project in Palestine has entered its final phase towards the expedited destruction of the last remnants of indigenous Palestinian life in Palestine. What's more, the governments of the United States, the United Kingdom, and much of Europe are wholly complicit in the horrific assault. Not only are these governments refusing to meet their treaty obligations to ensure respect for the Geneva Conventions, but they are in fact actively arming the assault, providing economic and intelligence support, and giving political and diplomatic cover for Israel's atrocities. And that's from Volker Turk, High Commissioner for Human Rights. So, and I feel the same I said in my live the other day. The United Nations have become useless at this point. They just sit around trying to change, different countries veto it, and they try and change the wording, and at every minute, more innocent people are dying. This is ethnic cleansing, a massacre, whether you want to call it a genocide or not. It is a moral injustice and a terror that is unfolding in front of us. And it's our responsibility, especially if we're from those places, like the UK, like the US, it is vital that we put pressure on our politicians to do something. We have to, at the very least, get them to agree to a ceasefire, and that's the first step. I would implore you to go on protests. Go to protests. Keep talking. Do not let them live this down. Don't move on to other things, because these people can't move on to other things. This is their reality. And at the end of this, if you're someone who claims that you want a two-state solution, how will there be a Palestine left for there to be a two-state solution? And watch how these liars will say that they support a two-state solution, these leaders, while they stand by as the Palestinian people are massacred and slaughtered like animals. Okay, anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Yes, Medical Aid for Palestinians is a great place to donate to. Please keep talking. Please keep making videos. If you can do that, you know, if you're someone who can do that, talk, make the videos, educate the people around you if you can. You're going to get some stuff thrown at you. You know, people are going to say it's anti-Semitic or it's terrorist sympathising or something like that. If you know in your heart that you stand with all innocent people all across the world, then you know what the right thing to do is. You know what the right thing to do is, and there are no excuses. We have no right to be cowards here because we are safe. We are safe here. We've got no right to be cowards. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I love you loads, and I'll see you really soon. All right, love you. Bye.